I'm going to show you two videos, and I want you to tell me which one you think looks more interesting. So here's video 1. Pose, pose, pose. And here's video 2. Pose, pose, pose. Chances are you said video number 2 was more interesting to watch, but why is that? Well, it could be because video number 2 had more movement and the poses were more dynamic. That's the special word of the day. Dynamic. If you watched my Your Sonic Art is Good, but it could be better video from 2 years ago, which I cannot believe that that video is already 2 years old, you may remember me talking about the 45-degree angle pose. You know, Sonic standing neutrally, maybe he has his hand on his hip, maybe he's holding up a peace sign, which is cool and all, but the pose just seems a little too stiff. There just isn't really a whole lot of life to it. And I feel like it's really easy to sort of get stuck in this loop of drawing that same sort of pose over and over again. We want to break away from that. We want to break through it all. We want to draw poses that are less stiff looking and more exaggerated, more dynamic, if you will. Poses that just look like they're moving. Because, well, quite frankly, if you ask me, they're a lot more interesting to look at. And for a franchise like Sonic that essentially builds its whole brand off of speed and motion, it just makes sense to want to draw poses that convey a lot of motion. So today, I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to draw more dynamic poses. And this is specifically for Sonic characters, but if you're not in the Sonic fandom, you could still find these tips helpful to use for whatever fandom you're in or whatever characters you're drawing. But before we get started, my name is Jake, or Jake Creative. I post a lot of Sonic fan art and drawing tutorials, so if you like the artsy side of Sonic, then please subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any future videos or live streams. And without further ado, let's get started. The Sonic Adventure art style is widely regarded as the best art style to come out of the franchise. Pioneered by Yuji Uekawa, it modernized the franchise for its totally not rough transition into 3D by featuring more flexible and rubbery looking proportions and more dynamic poses compared to the classic era. But I think the most important aspect of this art style for this video is that a lot of the poses convey a lot of motion. Even if a character is standing still, their body is still drawn in a way that makes it look like they're moving to some degree. Whether it's the pose utilizing more weight-bearing limbs, or if the pose is drawn from a different camera angle, both of which we'll talk about later. This is one of, if not the art style I recommend people referencing when trying to draw more dynamic poses, and I'll be using a lot of examples in this video. Even though, if you're a Sonic fan like me, chances are you've probably seen all of these before. There's plenty of references to choose from, including official style guides and concept artwork directly from Sega. The Sonic Adventure art style basically uses all of the tips that we're going to cover in this video, so let's keep going. Before you start drawing the actual pose, you may find it helpful to draw a line of action. A line of action is a simple curved line, usually either shaped like a C or an S, that gives you an idea of the overall direction of the pose. It's kind of like drawing the spine of whichever character you're drawing. For this pose of Sonic, you can see that the line of action looks like this. It's a curved line that starts up here at the head and curves back slightly and a little bit more forward once you get down towards the feet here. From there, you can draw your anatomy layer on top of the line of action, just like so. Here's another example with Tails doing this cool leaning sort of pose. You can see that the line of action once again will start at his head, and this time it curves forward like this down towards his feet. You can also see that Tails' lower body is also dipping down a bit where the curve is, and you can see that he's bearing more of his weight on this foot, which leads us to our next tip. Basically what weight bearing is the idea that a character is putting more of their weight on either a particular limb or a certain side of their body. This is commonly illustrated with a character offsetting their center of balance by leaning towards one side. This is a great way, and probably the most easy way to sort of break out of your comfort zone a little bit and draw poses that are a bit more natural looking and not poses where the character is just standing up completely straight. Like, could you imagine if we just went about our day-to-day lives just standing and marching around like gun soldiers? Doesn't sound very fun. So we want to break out of that and just make the poses seem a bit more relaxed. I think the best example of showing this is this drawing of Rouge. You can see that she's shifting her weight to this side of her body and putting more of her weight on this leg. And then if you look really closely, you can even see there's actually a slight bend in this leg as well to sort of re-emphasize that she's bearing down on this leg. Not only that, but her other foot over here is slightly lifted up on her toes, showing that there isn't as much weight on this foot compared to this one. Going back to the previous tip also, you can see that the line of action here is more like an S curve, where the chest is a bit more forward, then it kind of curves back in over to this side of the body where the weight bearing is happening. And again, it just makes the pose look more relaxed and just more natural in nature, not stiff. Here's a comparison I did with a more straight and stiff looking pose compared to the more relaxed and natural pose. And again, if you ask me, I think the more relaxed pose looks a lot cooler. So you definitely want to use this idea of weight-bearing limbs with your poses. And even if your line of action isn't like a super crazy curve, you can still use the idea of weight-bearing to make your poses, again, seem more relaxed and more lively. You can see with the before version of Tails here, he's standing completely straight. It almost looks like he's doing a Michael Jackson lean to this side over here. He basically just looks like a statue compared to the after version over here, where you can see I drew him bearing more weight down on this foot in front right here. And overall, I just think he looks more lively. He just kind of looks like, again, it almost looks like he's moving, even though he's kind of standing still here. So even if you still want to keep sort of the hand on hip peace sign, you can make it just look more interesting with this idea of weight bearing. You can also see in this drawing of Tails that I actually also used a little bit of foreshortening and perspective with his peace sign hand here. So like I said, with this drawing of Tails, his hand doing the peace sign is closer to us as the viewer. So I decided to draw it a little bit bigger compared to this hand right here. You can also see that because the hand is held closer to us, this arm is actually going to appear shorter compared to this arm right here, since the arm is kind of pointed towards us. This does a great job of giving this pose a sense of depth. Here's another example with Shadow. You can see that the hand and even the shoe in back looks smaller compared to the hand and shoe that's in front towards us. Whenever I'm drawing a pose that involves a little bit of foreshortening, one thing that I actually find helpful that I like to do is I actually like to draw the hand first before I draw the arm. That way, if I need to, I can move the hand around and I can even make it a little bit bigger if I want to maybe make the perspective a little bit more dramatic. And then I can just go back and draw the arm, or really just the shoulder in this case. One thing that also helps too when dealing with perspective kind of like this, where the hand is bigger and closer to us, is you may also want to draw objects that are closer to you a bit thicker as well, like make the outline a bit thicker, just because since the object is closer to you, the details are going to be a bit more defined compared to stuff that's further away. And not even just making thicker outlines, you can also make the opacity of stuff that's further away a bit lighter, like this. That way the stuff that's closer to us is a bit more in focus and draws more attention. This is another example that I did with Knuckles that I fully outlined and colored, and you can see that this glove and this shoe, again, since they're closer and they appear bigger, I decided to give the outline a bit more of a thicker outline compared to, you know, the hand back here, some of the details on his face, stuff like that. And as you can see, drawing from different perspectives can also make a drawing look a lot cooler. So you can see with this drawing of Knuckles, I went for a more lower angle that kind of is looking up at him, which is why his shoes relative to, you know, his upper body and his head might look a little bit bigger. This might take a little bit of practice to sort of get good at, and you might even find it helpful to draw using a perspective grid. I personally only really use perspective grids for backgrounds with characters. I kind of just like to eyeball it. That's just me personally. But if you keep practicing, this will eventually become second nature and you'll get pretty good at it. This last tip really doesn't have anything to do with the actual drawing of the pose, but cropping your canvas can actually make poses, even if they're not that dynamic, just look a lot cooler. I think when you're drawing more dynamic poses, it's best if your artwork fills as much of the canvas as possible, even if it means cropping out certain parts of your drawing. I kind of like to think of it as, you know how sometimes in shows, they'll show like an action up close to kind of make it look like it's pretty cool, and then they'll like zoom out for comedic effect to make whatever's happening seem like more boring or like more corny. I kind of like to think of it like that. Now, this doesn't mean you always have to do a tight crop with whatever pose you're drawing, but I think it really just does help with making, again, whatever pose or gesture that you're drawing just seem more impactful, more cool looking, and in general it just makes the overall composition of your drawing more interesting. So as an example, this Knuckles drawing again is drawn from a lower perspective, so I could leave it like this with a bit more white space around him, or what I could do is maybe I crop it a little bit, you know, bring the edges in a little bit. Maybe I move Knuckles around so that maybe more of his shoes are in focus here, even if that means maybe bringing this in even a little bit more, maybe even cropping out part of his hand and his shoe right here. Maybe even I rotate him a little bit and kind of bring more of the details back like this. Like there, again, it's a matter of trial and error really with this, but you can see that it kind of does make it look a little bit more cooler if you ask me. Also, I recommend doing this with your sketch before you outline in color, just because you'll save a lot of time with not needing to outline in color like stuff that'll get cropped out. I just happen to have this outlined in color already, so just an example. Once you master all of the other tips, getting good at frame cropping is kind of just like the cherry on top and will make your already now dynamic poses look even more interesting and more cool. Now, I know I showed a lot of different anatomy drawings in this, so if you're not quite comfortable with drawing Sonic character anatomy, it's your lucky day because I have a whole tutorial right here on how to draw different Sonic character body shapes, sizes, and proportions. Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial video. I really hope you guys found it helpful. Let me know in the comments below if you guys found these tips helpful, and let me know what other tutorial videos you guys want to see. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any future videos or live streams. And as always, stay cool, stay creative, because I'm Jay Creative.
Oh yeah, that was probably it. Oh.